Hello and welcome to the business of being an author. I'm Chris Ashmore. By now, if you've watched or listened to these episodes, I think you're quite aware that writing and publishing your book is just the very first step. Being a commercial author is a long game. In fact, Andrew Griffiths encourages you to have a 10-year plan. It's what sets authors apart. There's a lot to pack in this episode as Andrew shares his 10-year framework. Well, Andrew, I don't imagine most authors have a 10-year plan, but you do. Can you tell me what yours is and why?
Sure. And I guess a little bit of that background around this is really in keeping with the theme of the whole idea of the business of being an author is about having that longer term thinking, about bigger thinking, about treating it as a business, not as a hobby. It's about doing all of those kind of elements. And I think something that I realised early on in the piece for me as well is when I was my author and my business related activities, what I was selling basically around that was very right here, right now, you know, and it was kind of interesting on that, but it wasn't particularly visionary. And it wasn't like I wasn't kind of planning to adapt and evolve. I wasn't, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And I realised when I was still writing and publishing with Allen & Unwin, and I was contracted to write a book every year with them, that I needed to have more of a strategy. I needed to have more of a plan. I'm very, very strategic in everything that I do. And I didn't quite make the leap to apply that to being an author. You know, so in my business, I had plans, I had strategies, but in my author business, I kind of flew by the seat of my pants more than anything else, and I reacted as opposed to being proactive. So I realised that I needed to develop a plan, and that's when I started to do, well, okay, what are the books that I want to write? So I had like a spreadsheet with 150 different book ideas on it and go, well, I'm going to run out of life before I run out of book ideas. But even that is a little bit too random. And I started to go, okay, I need a better system. And so I developed my own kind of strategy, which has 10 different elements in it, which is all around what I include in my 10-year plan.
Well, can you walk us through that, that framework?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So I might use my little note sheet here as well.
Let's do that.
On that side of it. I think first and foremost, the first part of it is, you know, what is my 10-year vision? You know, and we hear about that kind of stuff on a regular basis, but it's like, you know, what do I want to achieve over the next 10 years from a financial point of view, from the books that I want to be writing, from a philanthropic point of view, from the products that I want to be selling, just really what is it, not detail, but like the visionary part. Like, for example, now part of my plan going forward is to do more and more work helping authors to build their business. So I've got a book coming out or a book out, you know, all of that stuff. It all just kind of, you know, fits into the direction that I'm taking. So I spend quite a bit of time just getting clear on what I want this vision for me to actually look like in the coming 10 years. Mm-hmm. Well, so that's step number one.
Well, number two is how do you plan to evolve?
Yeah, great. So on our last episode, we spoke about the importance of evolving as an author and evolving your author business. So for me, with number two, is really looking at that side of it as well. So we've got the vision in number one. Number two, saying, well, what do I need to evolve? You know, personally as an author, what are my new books going to look like? What topic am I expanding into? How is that all starting to kind of change? As well as how do I plan to evolve my business? So I get more into details there again around this. What does evolution really mean for me in the coming 10 years? Do I want to do more international, less international? Do I want to publish a book every 3 years, every 2 years, or one book? What books am I republishing because they're due to republish? How am I increasing my skills as an author? How am I becoming better at writing? What technology do I need to be embracing? All of those kind of things, which is to me conscious evolution as opposed to reactive evolution here. So I guess there's a bit of a tie in there, but it's like, okay, well, this is number one, my vision. Number two, what how I want to evolve all parts of my business and myself in the coming 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Which leads then on to number 3, which is how will your tribe evolve over this time?
Yeah, and again, such an important piece. And look, that's often a difficult one, right? Like we can kind of guess that, but it's also that is again part of a visionary plan that it's a little bit hard to know. We don't necessarily know what's going to come up. We don't know how the world's going to change. But in the same vein, though, we kind of do. Like I can be pretty certain in the next 10 years there'll be political turmoil. At times there'll be probably technological breakthroughs that are good but create turmoil. There'll be environmental things. There'll be economic issues. There'll be a recession of some sort because that's what always comes along. So I've got to kind of think about my audience who are predominantly entrepreneurs and authors and go, well, okay, what are the things that are going to change for them? Like an example of that would be I work with a lot of authors, first-time authors and people setting up their business here. What impact is AI going to have in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? And I need to be able to kind of, really be a bit of a futurist around this and think a bit about the impacts and what role then do I serve in there? How do I help them? How do I make sure that I'm staying relevant by, adapting and evolving, but also listening to what is happening with them? So that, and this for me is going, okay, I really need to just think about the next 10 years. What is that going to mean for small business owners? What is going to change? And I think it's like, well, ultra tech, ultra competitive, ultra easy to lose relevance in amongst it, complexity of marketing. We're moving back to more of a balanced approach. People don't want to work 18 hours a day. Health and well-being, such a big topic. Okay, roll all of those kind of things I just rattled off into the work that I do. Great. So which of my books are still going to be relevant? What have I got to write? What do I think to tie into that? So we can start to put a bit of meat on the bones around our kind of thinking and our plan.
Right. Well, number 4, map out your book roadmap.
Mm-hmm. So what that means for me is what are the books that I want to write in the next 10 years? Now, part of that is also you learn a bit from your mistakes. And like when I mentioned before with Allen and Unwin, I wrote a book a year for them and did 11 books with them. It's too many books. It's too much. One year I had 3 books come out, 2 with Allen Unwin and 1 with Simon & Schuster. The problem is that I learned from that was that you don't really do any of the books justice because how do you leverage 3 books that have come out in the same year that are on 3 different topics that are it confuses the audience, confuses the media, confuses you. It doesn't really work. So I wouldn't do that mistake again, even though I say I'm working on 3 books at the moment and 2 are coming out this year. But it's a different strategy, different markets. But I do know what my next 10 years worth of books are. I know what books are coming out this year. I've got another one coming out next year. Then I'll do the updated edition of my current book probably next year. So I just have a timeline which kind of goes, okay, that's what I think I'll be writing. And now, look, odds on the book that I'm going to write in year 9 is probably not going to happen or I'll be dead, one or the other. But it's like, but at least I have it in a plan. I've got my book schedule kind of mapped out. Very few authors do that. It's always, again, a bit reactive, or I think I'll write the next one, because not only do I kind of go, oh, well, I've got my books mapped out, Chris, I also know how does that fit with my business. So I'm not like writing books on business and now I'm introducing my, South American barbecue book in there. It's like, okay, they're evolving with me. They're moving through that as my business is evolving. So I've got, okay, my book, The Business of Being an Author, comes out. I've got all my products mapped around it that ties in with my existing work with authors. My, book about doing a book called The Business of Creating Impact. And that's a business book. And again, what are my product offerings around that? And how does that align with my business and my direction? Because you don't want to keep doing this. Big direction changes. And now I've got to go into a whole pile of new product, which means a new market altogether that my current tribe go, well, that's not what we do. That's, we want that. So it's a very strategic 10-year plan that I also know keeps me thinking about the business of being an author. It keeps me, the books are always at the center of my business model, not on the periphery. So that book plan is a very integral part of this. And again, I know very few authors that do that, yet it's probably, for me, the most integral part of the whole kind of 10-year strategy.
Right. Okay. Well, number 5, define your product ecosystems.
And that's, again, so for each of in that 10-year period, so currently now I would look at it and go, okay, what's my product ecosystem around? Someone's got to be the most expensive. Now, I had a product ecosystem, which was like an online program, workshop, group program, etc., when that first came out. But now, 5 years down the line, what does my product ecosystem look like now? Do I need to do more product around that? The book is still strong, it's selling well, it's popular. Okay, so yes, so now I'm looking at going, okay, I'm going to add new product and, work on that. But I also, as I mentioned a minute ago, I'm looking at a new book like The Business of Being an Author and going, well, okay, I've got to have a product architect around that. And that is the book starts, and I'm going to do, one-to-one coaching, a group program, an online program will be in there. So I just make sure that I've got that, because at the end of the day, remember, that's what our business is, selling all of that stuff, not just selling the book. It's all about the bigger opportunity, turn every book into a $10,000 project as opposed to making $10 a book. So, really defining the product ecosystems, meaning the product ecosystem for each book, is a key. Might change, might adapt, might evolve, but at least you've got a plan to work to.
Mm-hmm. Well, number 6 is, what are your publishing models?
So that one, again, comes into the fact that, the world is changing. And it would be, for me, am I going to like if I looked at, let's say I've got 4 books in the next 10 years is on my agenda, I would look at that and go, okay, so I'm going to self-publish that one because I have more of a commercial model around it. I might self-publish that one. That one I'm going to go to a traditional publisher because it's a broader market and I don't really have a strong product ecosystem around it. It suits itself to a more mainstream market, etc. So that's what I'm talking about in there, is really looking at what is my publishing pathway going to be for each of those books. And even just thinking about that, so you're making that as a part of your plan, helps you with your longer term strategy.
Number 7, with your framework, you say, what are your format plans?
And that's, again, looking at it a little bit, adapt and evolve. So am I going to do audio books for each of those? The answer is yes. But even we were, chatting a little while back about like Atomic Habits, and James Clear now has a fantastic workbook, which is like a 300-page book that goes with Atomic Habits. It's amazing. Do I want to do workbooks now? They've become very popular, adapt and evolve. So have any of my books, do they need a workbook? Now I'm saying, hang on, I'm actually going to go back and do one for Someone's Got to Be the Most Expensive. That book's been out for 5 years, but it lends itself to a workbook. What kind of digital formats am I looking at doing the books in? Ebooks, Kindle, of course, are there different ways? Are there different things that I, could be doing around that? So I like to really define what my format plans actually are going to be for each of the books, as well as for any of the past ones, that might be updated, etc. So, and that is, of course, too, part of that time for an updated edition of that book. Or maybe an older book that I haven't done an ebook for that going, well, or an audio book, I really should do an audio book for that because I know people want them. So really looking at that for all of your books is important too.
And that flows on well with number 8, which is, how will your brand evolve?
Well, every brand has to evolve, and so, for example, now I look at what I'm doing and go, okay, I've got a very strong personal brand. The website is, it's been active for a long time, but it is actually time for me to do a brand refresh and do a new website, as well. And the reason I say that is because I've done a refresh constantly that I've mentioned before about evolution, but you still reach a point where you go, okay, I need to do a new look and feel. And part of the trend at the moment in a lot of websites particularly in the authory, speakery space, is a bit more minimalistic. There's a confidence element to them. They're smaller sites. You're not navigating 100 pages. When I first did my rebrand, it was a big website. It had a lot of stuff, too much now. So my website's going on a diet and I'm changing it, but you reach a point where it starts to become a bit Frankensteinish, where it's like that, where you go, okay, that. So that's a project for me. Next year, not this year, but next year will be a complete redo of my digital footprint. So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about there, saying, how will your brand evolve? Thinking again about all the elements of brand, the look and feel, what you're saying on social media, who you're partnering with. And it might be that type of thing where you say, well, next year I want to do more international work. So my brand, I want it to evolve so it has more of an international feel, as opposed to you're reading a website and it's very Australia, Australia, Australia. Now you want to change your language to be more as Andrew Griffiths is an international author and speaker. So you would, change it a little bit there. But you've got to consciously know how you're evolving to make that work.
Well, I'll be interested to see your new look website, because I often go to yours as a bit of inspiration. So
great.
Yes.
I love that.
Well, number 9, Andrew, what are your commercial goals?
And so here now, this is really, what do you want your business to achieve in financial terms? And now we've got to also get into the nitty gritty. So for me, that breaks down into what is my, a business model, right? What do I want to achieve in sales for the next 12 months, and then look at that over the next 10 years and go, well, okay. Like for me, I've just turned 60 and I go, well, the next 10 years is really an important period in my life. It's the 10 years that I have the greatest earning potential. I've got the, biggest, my audience is growing. My books, I'm still active and writing. I've got a lot of stuff kind of going on there. But so what does that mean for me financially? In the same vein, I don't know that I want to work as hard as I have worked. So it's really saying, okay, well, if I looked at that 10 years, what do I want to earn over that 10-year period? What is that, what do I want to buy? What do I want to, what does that look like? Do I want to work 3 days a week and spend 2 days a week volunteering at Bunurong Wildlife Sanctuary, rumbling with wombats all day long? You got to decide what that looks like for you and where you're at in your own kind of life. But don't leave that to, my business goal is to get as much money as I can or to get by. Consciously set an annual budget. And that's a critical key. And then look at that over 10 years. Is it a growth stage? Is it a slowdown stage? Is it a diversify? What is it? But put actual numbers on the page.
Well, number 10, Andrew, what are your impact and legacy goals?
So that then becomes that next piece of that as well. When you're doing a visionary kind of a plans to look 10 years into the future, I think it's essential that you turn around and go, well, okay, how do I want to make a difference? That's your impact, So for me, as an example, there's something that I'm starting is a new business called The Wild Matters. And it's all about raising money to give to wildlife sanctuaries, carers, education, trying to kill roadkill. I'm applying for a Churchill scholarship to study that around the world. My impact is in wildlife. That's a space that is dear to me, and I spend a lot of time in the wild. And, that's something I want to do more of. So that's what, impact is for me. In the same vein, what is my legacy going to be? Now, I'm, getting towards the latter stages of my career, but it doesn't matter. I think I see incredible authors and people building businesses at 20 and 30 that are talking about legacy. And again, I just think that we need to be considering that. And so for me, I'm looking at my content, what do I want to leave behind? I mean, my legacy, a big part of it is working with authors. I know when I help create authors and they help them to write and publish their books, that's the greatest impact that I can have. Having worked with 1,000 first-time authors to publish their books, those ripples are huge. So I want to work with a lot more first-time authors in the next 10 years because that is, without a doubt, my legacy. So think about what your legacy looks like. think about the things that matter to you. Think about the impact that you want to have and what you want to be left behind. And even if you're young and that feels like it's such a long way away, legacy is not an age thing. Legacy for me is the exact opposite of that. We create legacy at 20. We create legacy at 90. It's something that we would aspire to all the way. So if you rattle all of those 10 together, those kind of 10 elements there, when you think about it, you end up with a really powerful plan. I think that I would guarantee that 1 in 1,000 authors would have a plan like that, if that. It is a game changer. It's a thought provocation piece. It's a master plan to work towards. And of course, it's going to change. It's not going to be to the letter of the law as the world evolves. But if you have a 10-year strategy, your chances of being successful when you're building a business as an author will be so dramatically increased, it'll be ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Well, Andrew, before we go then, 3 key action points to take away?
So number 1, develop your 10-year plan. You got the 10 topics, you got the shell, you know what to do. You just got to commit time to actually thinking it through and going right and have a visionary 10-year plan. Put it on an A3 sheet, put it on the wall, make it something, as simple as that. Doing that will change so much. Number 2 for me, make sure that your plan covers evolution in detail. That point that I've made in the past about, the need to stay relevant, how you're going to evolve, how your books are going to evolve, how your tribe's going to evolve, how your business is going to evolve, how your brand is going to evolve. Because that's really the purpose of a plan like this. I worked for a Japanese company for a few years, and the first thing they did when I got there was they gave me a copy of their 100-year plan. There's our 100-year strategy. And I thought it was all pie in the sky, fluff and bubbles. And it was the exact opposite of that. It was an extraordinary document that identified every potential issue, every challenge, everything that they could face, and how their whole culture was around if this happens, what do we do as a global company to come out stronger, better, wiser as a result of that? And that embodied a culture in that entire organisation that was one of problems are extraordinary opportunities for us to become better. By having your 10-year strategy, you're doing the same kind of thing for your author business. You're predicting and planning and being very focused about how you're going to grow this business, which is what's going to ultimately make it successful. And then number 3 for me, it is be okay with looking back at your plan, in a year or 2 years and letting it adapt, letting it change. And you might come up with the greatest idea for a book that was nowhere near your plan, but all of a sudden it works. You go, because there's a huge need, like AI came along. And all of a sudden a lot of authors kind of went, oh, hang on, I've got to write about this. It's come out of the blue. So, be okay with that. And I'm just really saying there, don't be ridiculously rigid in your plan. So I'm telling you to write a plan, do all this, then ignore it. No, I'm just saying a wise plan is one that allows you to be able to kind of adapt and evolve the plan as circumstances change. You might change. I don't want to write on this. I do want to change direction. And I've worked with people who they used to write on this, now they write on that. That's a hard shift to make, but their passion now lay with that topic. It's like, okay, you evolve, you change, you move that way. I get it. You're going, I don't want to write another book about this. You go, okay, cool. So it can all be done, but you just got to kind of go, right, you got to have something to change. So have the 10-year plan first, then you can kind of change if need be.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thanks again, Andrew.
Pleasure, my friend.
And that ends this episode of The Business of Being an Author with Andrew Griffiths. To learn more or to contact Andrew, please visit andrewgriffiths.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.